Hey guys, Robert and Ingrid here as we got a bit of a rant to talk about because, oh boy, we've been over this somewhat once before when we went over the Godzilla Anime Trilogy, how there were some purists who, remember that, when I revealed to you how there were some purists who were dumping on King of the Monsters and praising the Anime Trilogy for some God knows reason? You remember that?
Even though we now know that it really could have been a lot better without
yeah.
the meddling, and as it turns out, the director was perfectly fine because he made Gamera Rebirth.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about how you and I looked at some of the fans of it who were praising it and dumping on it just because what the Anime Trilogy was Japanese made and the American one was like, remember that whole fiasco? Well,
I think I willingly suppressed that one, let's be honest.
Well, it started up again. Now, thanks to -1 doing so incredible, and given how much goofier the Monsterverse has gotten, right down to seeing Godzilla and Kong charging at the screen and everything, you're starting to have people ready to just dump on everything, saying how the Monsterverse is shit. It is utter shit. It is MCU level quality, and yeah, everything should be more like the and more like -1. When it's like, first of all, I say, why can't we have both? Why can't we have both?
Okay, no los dos.
Yeah, and it's like, here's the other thing is, people don't remember this. Toho is heavily involved with everything. They are so protective of Godzilla. That was the flaw with the Anime Trilogy.
Oh yeah, that is, their meddling, as I mentioned before, as it turns out, is what made it into what it was.
Because they were basically demanding, give us the biggest Godzilla possible so we will stay supreme. And really, I don't think I could come up with a good story either. Could you? Have you ever Godzilla that ginormous?
Yeah, no, that would be kneecapping it right from the start. If anything, they did a great job with what they had, but they weren't given all that much to work with.
I mean, the first movie worked fine because you still had a normal Godzilla with the baby, and then it revealed, oh crap, here's Mama.
But yeah, there's only so much you can really go with that premise.
With that size of a Godzilla, exactly. And thus we got what we got. But it's the thing, though, is that people just forget, like, Toho, and not everything is the dark and gritty. I mean, look at what Showa became, for good or for ill. And look at it. I mean, we only had only a handful that we actually consider legitimately bad.
Yeah.
Even when it got goofier. There was only a handful we could consider legitimately bad. Now, granted, are the more serious ones the better ones? Yes. I mean, look at...
We're not going to deny that one.
Yeah, I mean, look at with Space Godzilla on the high side. Weakest one, because it was mostly for camp. There's no denying that, but at the same time, though, look at also what happened with one of the most serious of the Showa ones, Terra Mechagodzilla. Still to this day, the lowest grossing of the movies. That is still a shame. When even 98 outgrosses it.
Oh, that's an awful look.
Yeah, to this day, it is still the lowest one. Now, probably because you'll never get it getting that low again, no matter what. You'd have to you'd have to have made on the 98 Godzilla be the norm to get that low again. But okay, what's your stand on all this? How people are saying, are condemning the Monsterverse because of how good -1 is. Now that we've seen -1.
Although I think that their argument already doesn't have a leg to stand on, because it's very clear that the Godzilla here, well, obviously it's inspired a lot by 54 and having some unique twists, clearly takes some visual cues from the Monsterverse. There's some real cultural exchange, and I've said previously on videos I've been in that I think the Japanese-American cultural exchange is something in the wake of World War II, is something that is really beautiful. I mean, even me as a kid went to events that my particular place I grew up in, Clinton Township, had a sister city relationship with a city in Japan whose names I forgot. And I always really liked being able to go to those and such, or watch VHS tapes that one of my aunts had brought home from Japan while she had gotten amassed master's degree there, and that led into me having a real love of the culture. I went on to study a language in high school and college. Skoshi Nihongo o kanashimasu. I speak a little Japanese.
Right.
And it's like it sort of goes into something that feels like it going into something that's in the same general ballpark of being weeaboos, is thinking like, this is the only, oh, this is so good. Japan is so good, and everything else is like sucks and is terrible just on the basis of like where it happens to be from. When you see stuff all of the time, like, remember all of the hype around Ghost of Tsushima getting a bunch of critical acclaim out on the other side of the Pacific Ocean? Like,
to the point where people were pissed off. To the point where people were pissed off when Last of Us won Game of the Year.
It was Player's Choice that year, and it's just like the general trend here is an exchange of cultures. Like, the same sub versus dub debates are happening here as there as well as here. I found it hilarious when I first learned. It's just like, oh, is King of the Hill better subbed or dubbed? It's like they get bad tattoos in English and we get bad tattoos of kanji and stuff. It's like,
exactly.
It's such a beautiful thing that's happened after a lot of places of historical tragedy and messiness. And now we're going to go ahead and stomp on all of that. What? To win a couple of points on the internet? It's just, I don't like it. There's a little Asian corner store nearby where I live, where I regularly will get snacks and meals and stuff. And it's just like, I appreciate the culture, but it's like, to the point where I consider it like something that it's kind of adoptive to me, but it's just...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now, here's one other thing, though. Now, there are some people who were saying they would rather it's keep with the tone from Godzilla 2014. Okay, that I can understand to a point, but that movie was dull.
Like, if it's simply a matter of taste, like, oh, I prefer this to this, then more power to you.
Exactly.
You know what you like. And I know that there's many cases where I like a lot of stuff that people do not like, but I'm not trying to make everyone try to like that thing.
Of course, me neither.
I might try to help convince people that maybe they might have been, I don't know, listening too much to other people talk and not forming their own opinion on something. But, you know, difference of taste, perfectly respectable, but trying to say that no one should like this thing because I think it's bad is the point where you've crossed the line.
Exactly.
And it's just like, hey,
all right,
it's like, I want stuff equally as subbed and dubbed fairly. Dubbed as far as Japanese stuff goes, because sometimes I like to understand I can sometimes understand stuff without subtitles in the original language, but I also understanding how stuff gets localized. Like, one example of this I can think of is that a very famous Magical Girls series, I recently discovered that there's actually a fairly good Netflix localization of it under the name of Glitter Force, where it's just like, wow, okay, they managed to translate the feel of that show from Japanese to English really, really well. It's like, these things can't... Sorry, I'm getting on a bit of a tangent, but it's like...
No, I understand. That's why I want you here. But I was going to say quickly, I'll let you continue, but I just want to say quickly, here's the other thing is, you notice how everyone complains about English dubs of foreign things, and yet no one, not one, complain when an English movie, U.S. movie, is translated and dubbed overseas. No one complains about it. It's only the English. Now, to be fair, are there, especially more these days, American, like the translation dub writers and all that stuff, who are becoming more notorious for slipping their own stuff in there? Yes, unfortunately, and that's part of the reason why we're getting more Japanese companies saying they don't want you to change anything, which unfortunately
is hurting. At least this isn't the days of 4Kids. Dear God, that was a whole jungle.
Remember what happened? Or worse yet, Blue Mr. Popo on Nickelodeon. Remember that?
Yep, and
Popo.
What's something that's very relevant to stuff that's coming up in the future, I still absolutely love the English dub of Yu Yu Hakusho over the Japanese dub, because they just managed to get so much personality in all of the VAs.
Exactly.
And just the writing was like, it was so snappy and whatnot and so good. It's just like, I can't imagine watching it every other way, because the actors just nailed it so well. It's like, I can understand the merits of both sides here, so it's just trying to discount one over the other. It just feels like I can understand not wanting the culture to get trampled on, but there's a point where it just starts up sounding really sanctimonious and self-righteous without really considering what the actual situation is.
And boy, do not get me started. I would say this. The one type of criticism when I see from these type of people that infuriates me most is when it's Japanese Americans who, I'm thinking, just judging by their actions, their attitude, their phrasings, don't even know their own culture, but just presume because they are Japanese, they know more than anyone else. You get what I mean by that, right?
Yeah. It's the just type two.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I feel like sort of the equivalent of, oh, my parents happen to have this particular set of, like, sorry, never mind, I lost my train of thought there.
No, it's like the whole notion of, like, you just think, oh, I have a little bit of German in me. I could go to Germany and then be treated like I'm a German. It's like, no, you can't. And I think the same thing applies to...
It's both a cultural and a genetic thing. And it's funny you mention that, because I am actually a fair bit German, but I do know how to speak some German, but it's sort of more of like a thing that I was actually taught in my family. We sing Silent Night every year in German, because that's kind of like a special holiday tradition of ours.
But you wouldn't go there.
In Deutsch as well.
No, but you wouldn't go there and tell someone like, I'm German like you, when it's like there's a different level of being German. You know and understand it. You can appreciate it. But would that fall under someone who actually grew up there?
Yeah, it's like there's very much a clear difference, but it's like,
now, if someone was
part of it is just like it's just like there's so much around just. I feel like it's sort of like a wider trend in being American, where it's like, and I fall victim to it too, where it's just like, okay, we are all a bunch of people that came from a lot of places, so it's interesting to want to have a connection with those places that we came from, but it's like, there are good ways to go about doing that, and there are bad ways to go about doing that.
And that's where I feel the same thing applies to people who happen to be other ethnicities who just grew up born and raised here in the States, and everything, and just because they look it, they then presume, oh, I know more than you people, when they probably don't. You get what I'm saying by that, right? That being
said, it's like, the particular climate is not really helping them in that regard, because it's just like...
No, it's not.
Everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to feel like there's something that they're really proficient at, or good at, and it's like, a lot of the messaging is unfortunately around... well, stuff you can't control over stuff that you can control. They just want you to be able to have it all, and so people are forced to kind of conform to that, since that's all the messaging, when that's just straight up wrong. And that is honestly one of the ways that's stifling actual cultural understanding from going on.
Exactly.
Which is really unfortunate. It's like, part of it isn't even really their fault, so to speak. It's just the particular climate they happen to be in, and trying to figure out their identities and stuff, which is... Which, when I think about it, makes me a lot more sad than it does angry.
Well, and I agree with that. I'm just simply saying, it's when I see those criticisms, those trying to condemn the Monsterverse over... Look, okay, well, we agree that we've already said, -1 has trumped everything in the Monsterverse so far. It is toppled King of the Monsters as our #1. But the fact we had King of the Monsters as our #1 for quite a while should also speak volumes of where we stand. it's like, yeah, it's number 2 for us now. We still enjoy it. And one thing I just don't get is, why do people want to just dump on the Monsterverse? It's like, I'm looking back at King of the Monsters, which it's still the best of the Monsterverse for us. It had everything you wanted. Giant monsters, a not that bad human story, not the greatest, but not the worst. And yet I see so many people want to dump on Millie Brown or whatever, the kid. They keep on dumping on her. It's like, what did she do wrong? Her mother was worse. Granted,
yeah,
she didn't help her kid. Sorry.
The child actress there is pretty fantastic too.
She's 11 from Stranger Things. That's 11 from Stranger Things.
And also the one who played Tony Stark's daughter in the MCU. I Love You 3000.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, now, granted, the actress didn't do that well in Godzilla vs. Kong. Let's be honest. I don't think she gave a crap in that movie. That's the vibe I got, wouldn't you say? It's like, ew. Would you agree? Remember how she was in Godzilla vs. Kong? Remember,
I'm not going to fight you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. But again, no. But she was very good in King of the Monsters still. Again, there was so much to like about King of the Monsters. I don't get why there are people who are saying it's one of the worst, and the fact that people were, again, when they were doing the Anime Trilogy, the fact there were people saying how Ghidorah was better in the 3rd Anime Trilogy movie than he was in King of the Monsters. And it's like, what? Why? This was the best Ghidorah's ever been.
Yeah.
I
think that's another place where it's like, unfortunately, doing more incendiary takes of, oh, this is really, really crap, especially when something is better, is kind of just the way you get clicks. It's just
exactly that
stoking all of the controversy, even if the controversy really is not deserved.
Exactly. And not only that, though, but again, just look back at that. When we actually look at it, Ghidorah's actually been, there's a reason why we've always keep on feeling like Ghidorah. Did he really deserve to be Godzilla's rival? Because when you really look back at it, he's been the most reoccurring one. But aside from his first appearance,
he's not even been in control of himself.
Nope.
Which is like,
no, he has not. This was one of the first times since Return of Mothra 3 that he was the main threat without being controlled. Hell, Rebirth of Mothra 3 made it very clear he couldn't be controlled.
Oh, yeah.
The first one was the Ghidorah or whatever in the first movie could have been, but not this one, not that Ghidorah. And just, again, when we add on there's like only 3 times where he did most of the movie not under control. 3! And that's including King of the Monsters. All the other ones, he just happened to be there. He has a cool look, but he wasn't handled that respectively. Now, to be fair, in some of his other appearances where he was under control, there have been ones that were better than others, but that was because of the human villains.
Mm-hmm.
The human villains did it, but you always didn't count. He's still, I'm just pointing out as an example. But that's the case where the Monsterverse went back and gave us a Ghidorah and fully realized that he should be. Hell, Rodan, we keep on looking back and against like, why is he always number 2 to Godzilla?
That feels like something that is much more Anguirus's thing.
Yeah, but it feels like everyone seems like Rodan. It's just like, again, you just look at this stuff and you realize so many people are just latching onto the rose-tinted glasses.
This is, yep, Fanon propagates so far that they forgot what the actual source material was.
It's a comparison. I will make this. Okay, you know, I doubt you've seen it, but you're aware of the He-Man Masters of the Universe Revelations, right?
I am aware of the shit show surrounding that, yes.
Well, here's the thing. I grew up with He-Man, but I didn't just watch the original series and never watch anything again. I kept an eye on everything since then. I read the comics and all that stuff, and I looked at it, and I enjoyed Revelations. I liked it, but you have so many people who just compare it. Now, granted, it didn't help. They were claiming originally it was going to be a continuation of the original series. Okay, that shot them in the foot to a point, but not to the farthest extreme. But you have so many people who just complain, but it's like, oh, it's not like the original. It's like, you guys remember the original? You guys really wanted to be just like the original? You get my point by that, right? Like, do you really want it to be 1-for-1 like the original? There's a reason why people like why J. Michael Straczynski himself says, don't applaud He-Man. He doesn't look fondly on He-Man because of how goofy the writing was. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that was Revelations high art? No, most definitely not. But at the same time, it was still much more modernized compared to the original series. And that's what I feel the Monsterverse is doing. It's modernizing the Showa.
It's updating what is essentially one of our new, like, cross-cultural myths into a new era, which is how stuff like that has always worked.
Not only that, though, but people have been saying we want things to be faithful to Godzilla. We don't want another 98. Fair enough. But we're getting it, and now people are complaining. It's like, make up your mind, people.
Unfortunately, man does not know what he wants is going to be an ever-recurring problem in both the macro and the micro scale, and this is definitely more on the micro scale.
Now that was okay. Let's compare the series Godzillas. Okay, we have 54. Don't need upset about that one. Terra Mecha Godzilla, at least in its human plot, was very serious, but not in the monster stuff. Let's be honest. It's still goofy as hell in the monster stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then Godzilla in 1985, again, unfortunately, at least going by, even with the Japanese stuff, it was good still. I mean, that one was pretty serious for the most part, and it was still an interesting story to tell, but it ended so wonky. It was like, ooh, birds, into the volcano. It's like, what? That's how you stop him? I mean, granted, they knew they were going to do sequels, whereas the original, they didn't. I get that. But it was a dumb, hokey way to take out Godzilla, wasn't it? Just knock him into a volcano? You remember that,
right?
Yeah. Godzilla, would Biollante count this series, or would you still say that's goofy?
That is a really good question.
Because we loved it. Great writing, but Biollante is such a hokey monster. A great monster, great design, but come on. Godzilla versus plants. I'm just saying it's not perfectly serious. Again, doesn't match the original in its completely serious start to finish. No. But it's close. It's one of the closer ones. Is what I'm trying to say. Then from King Ghidorah up to from King Ghidorah and Mothra, these are all from the Heisei era. Those ones were definitely goofy. Those were camp, but still with a serious Godzilla threat. Like everything about it's just so like, come on, space travel and save the Earth and everything. Then you get Mechagodzilla 2. That one was pure serious. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, they definitely turned up the serious factor for that one. No denying that.
And that one worked. And then Space Godzilla, like we said, campiest, worst of the Heisei, but not shit. Then we have Destroyer. Again, back to the seriousness. There's a reason why that's now our, well, bumped down a bit, but now it's our third and fourth favorites. Because they were that good and well handled. Then we get to the Millennium. Even GMK was as great as we still consider it one of our best, one of our most favorites. But even that one was still a little goofy with some of the ideas. You know what I mean? Like, the ghosts, the spirits and everything. Oh, come on. The little dog, being tossed into the water. Then being saved by Mothra. Then... But that was definitely the highlight of the Millennium series. Then we have Shin. Shin, I think, went a little too far the other way. Too serious, but without enough Godzilla to back it up. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
Because we said before, -1 is the complete 180 of Shin in all the right ways. Because there's a reason why we don't have Shin be that high in our list, remember?
Yeah.
Because, I hate to say it, the politics was boring. Dealing with the red tape. I get the metaphor it was going for, but that only worked. It doesn't age as well as the original movie. It was good for the time when the movie came out. But now looking at it, you're just like, why is this relevant anymore? It's not that relevant. Would you agree with it? The red tapes after everything that happened with the nuclear power plant and everything, or the tsunami and everything, it's not that relevant now, by comparison. But then you had Godzilla 2014, like we said, boring, because it's like they're doing everything they can to avoid the monsters. And I'm sorry, I do not buy the whole, oh, what makes it when we finally do see the final fight at the end worth it. Not when it's like 20 minutes compared to the majority of the other the movie being the slog to get there. Especially when you have a whole bunch of cock tease fights. Where you're like, yes, 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 cock tease! I'm sorry, I'm mostly doing the ranting down here, but you get my point. It just
feels like very much a case where it's just like, okay, these two elements have kind of been there from the beginning. It's like, okay, monster as social commentary and also cool monster fights. Those have been around and part of the series, but it's just like pretending like one part of it is the real thing and part of the original vision for the story. Original like cultural vision for the story, when it's clear that they were playing around with the idea a lot, just kind of feels like a case of projection. Like, oh, this is what I think Godzilla should really be, but I don't feel confident asserting that on my own, so I'm going to try to project that opinion onto somebody else and then go fight people on the internet over it.
It feels like my Godzilla is better than your Godzilla, my Godzilla is better than yours.
It's like, we're all allowed to find enjoyment in different parts of the same thing that has this really expansive canon. And I feel like this is getting to be a broken record because the same discourse is happening in Final Fantasy or whatever. It's just everyone, you can enjoy your own versions of the thing. Please, dear God.
And I recalled, I've actually seen some people starting to say, I saw some people actually say the reason Final Fantasy was one of the worst writing in a Final Fantasy game. To which I'm like, what? Now here, okay, since we have this, I gotta ask, what do you think? And I think was the best narrative winner. Do you think Alan Wake deserved it, or do you think Final Fantasy deserved it? Be honest.
I can't really say. I know that it's a lot of the reason why I liked 16 so much has to do a lot with my own personal taste, and I realize that taste is not something that might be shared by a lot of people. And from what I saw Alan Wake 2 did a lot of unique things, so I'm not going to get particularly mad about that, because it's like, if it had been like something else that you could clearly tell was more of like a shill thing, then I would have gotten more mad. But it's like, at least it seemed like Alan Wake did a lot of unique things. So even though I don't know as much about it there, I'm not going to say that was BS. I do realize that this is a case where my taste was a bit more niche, because like there was a lot in 16 that reminded me of my first D&D campaign in a lot of ways that was really uncanny. And it's just like, that's an experience that was maybe shared with like 7 people at the most live, but it's just like also
I know what you mean.
Time, it's just, you can enjoy your thing, let me enjoy mine. Dear God, why are we spending time fighting on the internet about this?
Exactly. That's the main thing what this all boils down to. Why? What's the point of all this? Why are there people trying to start this crap when they can just be enjoying it or leaving it be? What do they want? If it's deep down, they just want to prevent any of the other stuff from existing, then that's the fault on them. Now, granted, this then goes into the whole, at least here, it's a fine balance between, you know, like, they just want Godzilla still. It's not like I want to turn Godzilla into Gamera. Then I would have a problem. Would you agree with that? If they start turning Godzilla more into literally Gamera, then there's a problem.
It's like, yeah, Godzilla is its own thing. Gamera is its own thing.
It's the Gamera. Keep it the Gamera.
There's a point where it's just like, okay, Yeah, things have names that mean things. There are a lot of complexities within that name, but that name is also not another name. And people are really bad at holding more than one idea in their head at the same time. It's an unfortunate reality that seems to apply to basically everything.
Exactly. So yeah, that's pretty much all we got to say. The main thing is, just enjoy what you have and quit being a stick in the mud. Is that the best way to summarize it?
Yeah.
So,
it's like, there are enough real problems out there. Stop fighting about the stuff that people want to use to have fun.
Exactly. That's all we got in this rant. We'll see you guys on the next video.